hadn't even returned from my dad's funeral. I had barely set my bag down when the pounding started. At first, thought it was some careless neighbor or maybe the wind rattling the old door frame. Then, the yelling cut through the quiet. "Stakeable, break the door, baby! Half of it is legally yours now!" The voice was shrill and triumphant. My husband's mother. Husband's voice followed, quieter, calculating. "Come on, we don't need to wait, just open it." Fingers curled around the cold brass knob. My father's apartment smelled faintly of cedar and dust, old sweaters folded neatly in drawers. The smell should have comforted me, grounded me in grief. Instead, amplified the absurdity. I hadn't even unpacked my suitcase from the funeral, and here they were, treating my father's home like a battleground. They were laughing now or shouting over each other. I couldn't tell. It was legally mine, they said. But I didn't feel legal. I didn't feel entitled. I felt raw, hollow, exhausted. The door shook beneath the pounding. I heard my husband's footsteps behind her, shuffling forward like a man trying to reassure a child. Then the door clicked. They stepped back. A tall man in a plain security uniform stood there. The look on his face was neither amused nor shocked. He was just sure. Sure that they weren't getting in today. "Mr." My husband whispered. His voice was small, uncertain, unsteady. "Mom, that's—" The mother-in-law faltered mid-sentence, the triumphant energy draining like air escaping a balloon. I didn't move. My chest heaved, but I didn't speak either. Watched the scene unfold like a photograph, developing in slow motion, the subtle stiffening of my husband's shoulders, the hesitation in his mother's hands, the quiet authority in the man's stance. The power that had seemed theirs to wield evaporated with one deliberate step of another person. I wanted to scream at them, tell them everything I'd thought in the car on the drive here, about boundaries, about respect, about how this was my father's home and my grief wasn't a doorway for their opportunism. But I didn't. I remembered my father once saying, "You can control your actions, not their expectations. And sometimes the quietest move speaks loudest." I stayed silent. The security guard said nothing, just placed himself gently in the doorway. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. The door remained closed. The message was clear: no one enters without permission. The mother-in-law muttered something under her breath, something clipped and bitter, and stepped back. My husband's hand rested briefly on her shoulder, a silent signal I could almost misinterpret as caution or resignation. The guard gave me a slight nod, the kind that says, "You're safe, keep your composure." And in that instant, I realized I had control. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to strike back, simply needed to remain. After a long moment, they left. The pounding stopped. The yelling stopped. Silence returned, only heavier now, laced with tension and unspoken shame. I sat down at the edge of my father's bed, letting the quiet fill the room. The apartment smelled like him again, cedar, dust, old books. I felt grief, still sharp, but somewhere under it, a fragile sense of calm was threading through. I didn't call anyone. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. The law, the rules, the plain authority of someone willing to enforce them had done what yelling and claims of entitlement could not. I owned that. Quietly, firmly. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost its edges. I found a notebook in his drawer and opened it, tracing his handwriting with my fingertip. There were notes about plants, about a car that never ran right, about people who had disappointed him. I smiled faintly at one line. "Control what you can. The rest will either teach or betray you." Close the notebook. The apartment was mine now, and not just by law. By the simple, undeniable fact that I had been here, I had stayed, and when the authority arrived, I didn't falter. I didn't feel victorious in the way movies show. No cheering, no dramatic monologue. I felt the quiet relief of boundaries respected. I felt my father's presence, steady and exacting. And I felt the strange, small pride that I could hold my ground without raising my voice. The world outside might still be messy. My husband and his mother might still see me as a nuisance or a challenge. But in this space, in this moment, had regained a measure of control that no yelling could undo. And that, I decided, was enough.